welcome to Sacred Assumptions. My name is Alaric Doe. I have a bachelor's degree in geology, and this is my co-host.
I'm Ben Gresham. I myself have a bachelor's degree from a seminary called Lucy Rice in apologetics or worldviews.
So, both of us grew up in the church and as different churches, and we started to have different sort of ideas of how to interpret scripture, how to react to politics, culture, sports, life in general. And most of the time we have a lot of casual conversations about it, and we thought, well, why don't we have these sort of conversations recorded and people can possibly hear what different sort of thoughts are to these common questions or controversial questions, and how to kind of talk and think about it. So that is what we decided to do. So we have different topics today, different about like politics, cultures, and such, but we also thought it'd be good, since we're both have ourselves grew up in the church, to have part of our podcast be us going through different parts of scripture and such. And we decided to go with 1 Peter 1 for the beginning part right here, and kind of go through and have a more theological topic to start us off with. So for it, I'll probably read from 1 Peter 1 to 12, and then you can take the last bit.
Okay.
So I'll be reading here at the beginning from 1 Peter 1. Peter, an apostle of Jesus Christ, to those who are elected exiles of the dispersion in Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, and Bithynia, according to the foreknowledge of God the Father, and sanctification of the Spirit, for obedience to Jesus Christ, and for sprinkling with his blood. May grace and peace be multiplied to you. Blessed be God the Father, and of our Lord Jesus Christ. According to his great mercy, he has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to an inheritance that is imperishable, undefiled, and unfading, kept in heaven for you, who by God's power are being guarded through the faith for our salvation, ready to be revealed in the last time. In this you rejoice, though now for a little while, if necessary, if you have been grieved by various trials, so that the tested genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold that perishes though it's tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Though you have not seen him, you love him. Though you do not see him, you believe in him and rejoice with a joy that is inexpressible and filled with glory, obtaining the outcome of your faith and salvation of your souls. Concerning the salvation, the prophets who prophesied about the grace that was to be yours searched and inquired carefully, inquiring what person or time the Spirit of Christ in them was indicating when he predicted the sufferings of Christ and the subsequent glories. It was revealed to them that they were serving not themselves but you, and the things that were now have been announced to you through those who preach the good news to you by the Holy Spirit sent from heaven, things into which angels long to look.
Therefore, preparing your minds for action and being sober-minded, set your hope fully on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. As obedient children, do not be conformed to the passions of your former ignorance, but as he who called you is holy, you also be holy in all your conduct. Since it is written, you shall be holy, for I am holy. And if you call on him as Father who judges impartially according to each one's deeds, conduct yourselves with fear throughout the time of your exile, knowing that you were ransomed from the futile ways inherited from your forefathers, not with perishable things such as silver or gold, but with precious blood of Christ, like that of a lamb without blemish or spot. He was foreknown before the foundation of the world, but was made manifest in the last times for the sake of you, who through him are believers in God, who raised him from the dead and gave him glory, so that your faith and hope are in God. Having purified your souls by your obedience to the truth for a sincere brotherly love, love one another earnestly from a pure heart, since you have been born again, not of perishable seed, but of imperishable, through the living and abiding word of God. For all flesh is like grass, and all its glory like the flower of grass. The grass withers and the flower falls, but the word of the Lord remains forever. And this word is the good news that was preached to you.
So that is 1 Peter 1. So part of the first thing that kind of pops out to me is the prophets who prophesied about Christ and about it, like the prophecy being one that the Spirit of Christ is in them, which is, I'd say, kind of interesting. Right there, to be like, Christ is in them prophesying about themselves. Oh, Christ is prophesying in them about himself. Miss it, that right there.
It's like, this is making it be awkward, man.
Stumbling over my words. But kind of like, for that puts into the like internal nature of Christ right there, of that with like John 1:1, like in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God, and the Word, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Mm-hmm.
Right there, of just that Christ has been throughout the whole time. He's not just randomly showing up.
Right
there. And kind of from like some first century believers and such right there, we're going like, hey, like Jesus is God, or he's really just man right here, just lived righteously enough to be like the Son of God right there. And this kind of is a counter argument to be like, no, he's from the beginning. He was there, his Spirit was there, helping with the prophecy in the Old Testament right there.
You're right. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think the thing that I found, or something that popped out to me, whenever we were going through this in Sunday school, is that it says in verse 10, it says, concerning this salvation, the prophets who prophesied about the grace that was to be yours searched and inquired carefully, inquiring what person or time the Spirit of Christ in them was indicating when he predicted the suffering of Christ and the subsequent glories. It was revealed to them that they were serving not themselves but you in the things that have now been announced to you through those who preach the good news to you by the Holy Spirit from heaven. Things to which angels long to look. Thing that I connected with that is there's also another thing that we've covered in core group on Tuesdays is whenever we were going through John, that it was talking about how one of the things that is important to do whenever you are praying for things in Jesus' name, that one of the key things is to make sure that whatever you're praying about is in the will of God. So that way, he will want to have that stuff come to fruition. And so, in this, one of the things that something that tends to be talked about in apologetics with that is that it talks about how many prophecies of Christ there are, and kind of how stunning or shocking it is, how much is talked about that Jesus was the one who fulfilled it, because it was it's something that would be unreasonable to be able to see him be able to fulfill all of it. And so in this, essentially what it's saying is that those prophets, it wasn't just that God was telling them, it was also that they were the ones who were seeking. The reason why we know as much as we do is because they wanted to find out a lot. And so with that, because it was something that was going, and so usually whenever you're asking God for something and say, are you asking for something in Jesus' name, and it will be given, it also has to do with giving glory to God. And so with this, a lot of what is seen with that is that with how much they had searched out to God to find out who the Messiah is, and then they saw a lot of stuff, they saw that stuff fulfilled in Jesus, they were saying that they had inquired carefully, but also that their inquiry brought about glory to God, to the extent that what we see today is people stunned at how much is revealed. So I saw basically a long connection there, that this thing was connecting all that stuff with that. I was like, that's interesting. It wasn't just that God was wanting to reveal it just on his own. It was that all these prophets were curious, and he was just letting them know stuff that they were already asking about. And so it was much more of a relational thing, not just him like splattering it all. And for them to take in, they're actually inquiring of it. He's like, I'd be happy to tell you about this. So there's that. And so then you see the connection of now people are just like stunned at how much how much was revealed about Jesus. And so so there was like that it just brought about further glory because of how surprised people are. Like, wow, that you don't get that much. They said that it's one of those things where it what do they call it? That it's a scientific term. It has more to do with the how the odds. Basically, it's just the odds. The odds that he would fulfill that is like not. The odds are not in his favor at all.
Definitely not in his favor. But I was just thinking kind of like all these different prophecies and such, and part of this, the Spirit of Christ also influencing the prophets right there. It's practically Christ is talking about himself right there. It's like, that's what I'm about to do. Like, I know exactly what I'm going to do in the future right here, because for one thing, he knows himself right there. He knows the plan for it. So he knows exactly kind of what he needs to give the prophets for prophecy.
Right.
And the part of the giving him glory is like, like the prophets there be like, please, like, tell me this about what's going to happen right here. And the prophet is possibly like, I would probably think of myself as a prophet to be like, please give me the prophecy of this one to come, so I know, like, and I'm wanting it to be just like a few years down the line right here from me, that I still get to see it, but they don't get the part of getting to see it, and they're still satisfied with the prophecy right there, because God gives it because it's for his glory right there.
Right. Yeah.
Convoluted way of saying that. My mind goes places. And all. So, but it's just, the amount of prophecy.
Oh, yeah.
Right there. And that I'm still thinking, my thought goes to practically Abraham. And just the prophecy of like Sarah. Like your seed will be a blessing to many generations and such right there. And Abraham probably thinking it's going to be like Isaac with Sarah.
Right, yeah.
Not quite understanding fully the deeper, like, indicate deeper meaning behind it, like the ones that come to say the world is coming through him.
Right. Yeah.
But also knowing that God will take care of it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So
yeah, I think that part of also why I was, whenever I saw that that connection with how this talking about how all the prophets found out like a lot about Christ, is that one of the things I think that at least whenever you're doing a Bible study lesson, you're doing a study on it, you're curious as to what this actionably looks like. And so with this, you kind of get that picture of, he said, here's what the prophets found out, and here's why they found out all this stuff. And then whenever we were reading in John about how anything that you ask in Jesus' name, he will do, and it had to do with the important thing is that he gives glory to him. It's like, okay, so what does that look like for someone to do that kind of thing? And then it brings glory to, what would you ask for that would bring glory to him? And then you saw a picture of that with this, of they were asking about all this stuff. They did it because they were curious, but it was also turned out to be for us. But the actual thing was that, and this was part of the reason why God did it, was because it would bring him glory. So I saw that, that was the connection to the actionable, or to a way that it would look like how that would play out.
Yeah. That is definitely right there of like, hey, like, because I'm thinking of John 15:7. If you abide in me, my word abides in you, ask whatever you wish and it'll be given to you. And a lot of people will go with that verse to be like, oh, like I can ask God anything and such right here, and it'll be given to me. But the connotation is like we ask in Jesus. Right there, like if you abide in me and my word abides in you. Right. There's that part right there has a huge like clause right there to be like, here's the starting part right here. Because if you're in Christ, like your thoughts are no longer your thoughts right there. And Christ's words that abide in you means it has penetrated you and is piercing your soul right there. So it doesn't, like, you're not thinking more about yourself. Yeah, right there. So it's important to think more about, okay, it says abide, what does that mean? Make sure you understand that before you try to interpret the rest of it. Yeah. And I think that's very much important because, like, right before this in Peter, the verse 7, verse 6, if I come over here, in this rejoice, though now for a little while, if necessary, you've been grieved by various trials. And so the part right there of like the various trials that Peter is talking about, the parts that I'm thinking of, like the prophets of old were going through a lot of trials right there, and for them with the prayers and such, and people asking for like, hey Lord, like what's going on right here with these trials, like his solution for it will still give him glory for it. Right there, that's the end goal for it, and for his glory to be in his people, where it's going to be like, hey, you're going to be tested, it's going to be for your goodness, but it's also for his glory at the same time. Like you have to remember the part of glory, right? God's glory, not our glory. Right there, because that can be very selfish. Right there. Anything else you're seeing in any different section right there?
I think more recently that was the biggest thing that stuck out to me.
Mm-hmm. So, for me, it was also reacting to the sober mind right there. Because in our Sunday school classes, we've been going through 1 Peter, and another big thing was like sober-minded right there, and how a lot of these decisions are having for us to be sober-minded. And we normally think of it as being like you're not drunk and such right there, but also thinking about the different ways your mind can be, I would say, off balance for it right there. We think most people, as we said, like alcohol, possibly if you're on drugs, but I can also think of different other times that you're like thinking about it, be like, oh, you're in distress right there, and all right there, and that you might not be thinking straight right there, and so because I can think of moments where you're like, you can possibly be stressed out, make a decision, and it's not actually going to change your life in the long run because you're just going to be thinking, I'm stressed out only like at that time part right there.
Right.
But here it's like, hey, like when you're thinking clearly and such right here, like set your hopes fully on the grace that will be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. So it's one of those things, part right there of like, when everything is either good, neutral, or bad, like you have to be putting your mind on Jesus right there. It can't be like through the mountains and valleys and such, where we would be like, oh, all the times in the valleys we pray to Christ and such, and at the mountaintops we be thanking for the blessings. It's also in the process in between the valleys and mountains, a sober mindedness where things are just like at a middle level right there, that we have to think of Christ and like that part right there.
So yeah, basically make sure you have clarity in all those circumstances of what your main focus is supposed to be.
Yeah.
In a simple way of looking at it.
Yeah. Because there are people who would be like, oh, in like modern times would be like, I signed something in distress right here, and it can be like that is void because it was distress, it was a time of need inside.
Oh, so you're saying that it could be useful if they were to start implementing that? Like, are you in your right mind to do this? Okay.
Are you in your right mind when you possibly believe this right here was possibly the music that they were playing in the church was just emotionally pulling at you right there to do it? Or was I can think for a guy would be like, did the music make you possibly feel like brave and such, like you can do anything right there, and you come back afterwards and you're like, nothing's really changed right there? Were you in the right mindset to fully implement it? And sometimes like in those different mindsets you can definitely, it does make life-changing decisions.
Yeah, because I mean at the same time it's like, could it negatively or did it do anything? No. But does that mean that it's an appropriate feeling to have? Like that's part of what, like that's one of the things that I've heard is that worship is also supposed to help you out with, it can also help to bring out the appropriate emotions that maybe you weren't feeling before that actually help you to get through the right thing. And so if it helps you to, in worship, it helps the guy also have that courage that he needs, that was a good thing. I mean, that's maybe a different kind of clarity.
Yeah, but for me it's just like an interesting sort of kind of thought process to look at of like there is a part of like it can bring out emotions that you like to help, but sometimes some people might call it emotional manipulation right there to do that, to be like, oh, make you feel sad about yourself right there with the music or the circumstance, or possibly be like in the moment, say you've lost a family member and such right there, to be like, hey, like like Jesus and such is here for you, which is like definitely that is true. But some people might look at the sober mind part and be like, they were not in the sober mind part; they were emotionally distressed. Right there.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely can see what you're talking about. I guess the thing I also wonder is, should you have already, were you not in the right emotionals? Were you not right emotionally in the sense of maybe you should have been distressed? Maybe you weren't. Maybe you were being a little too dull emotionally with whatever was going on, and this is actually set you on. Okay, this is the appropriate emotion you should be feeling. So that could be a tricky thing. I mean, it could like just have you go out of whack, or it could actually reorient you to here's the emotion you should be feeling.
Yeah, and I do believe like for that is like you should have proper emotions, because you should have it if somebody has just died, to be weeping for them. If somebody is happy, like they've got a new job or something like that, you should be happy for them and such right there. But
so at what point is it emotional manipulation?
Yeah, to be because I've met people who made decisions in those emotional, like vulnerable situations and such right there, and have kind of treated it like those situations have to be consistent for people right there, of like breaking down or right there, or constantly having that feeling to make you feel like you are in right relationship with God right there. So and then kind of by that push that on to other people. And so that's the part of trying to be like sober mind, to be like, hey, like afterwards to take a step back to look at it, to be like, okay, this was done during this time. Do I believe it? Am I going to act upon it now? With a response afterwards in a sober mind right there. And I think that is probably the key part right there, is like the afterthoughts of those probably.
Yeah. Like, so something that comes to my mind of a story I've heard.
A name was mentioned here that did not want to be mentioned, so we're editing it out.
It was either like during college, and he had a class ring, not from college, I don't think, but it was that he graduated high school, and so his mom got him one, and he was in a worship service, and he felt emotional with this whole situation. Felt like God was compelling, or not, maybe not. He felt that he felt a certain way that to where whenever they brought the offering plate around, he didn't have anything, but he did have that, and so he put that in there. And then later on, he regretted it because he just felt like it was much more of an emotional thing. It wasn't something that he very much so questioned if it was an appropriate thing to have done. Of course, he was also a little upset with the church because you think that they saw that, they'd start searching around, make sure, okay, do you really know what you just did?
I was like, how do you have the money for somebody's college or high school ring? The only option I can think of is you probably pawn it off, which is not, I don't think you should be doing that. I think
I mean, I'm sure they could have done something with that, but it was just the fact of, because it was that, and he felt bad because his mom had worked really hard to get him that, and so because he was in his emotions, and so he wouldn't think clearly, so he just felt like this is like I give to God, and then later on he was like, crap. And he didn't tell her for a long time. Like he didn't have a heart.
I would be like, I was on a fishing trip and I fell into the lake right there. I would.
So that's one of those situations where I can think of that I wouldn't call it emotional manipulation. Like, it wasn't like they were intending on doing it, but he wasn't thinking clearly when he wasn't in his emotions and wasn't thinking clearly, and they did not. He doesn't. Well, I would agree. Didn't think that they handled it appropriately because they should have. When they see that specifically, like, okay, let's at least find the person and ask first. So, like, are you sure you want to do this? But they never brought it up, so it was like it just feels like a scam.
Yeah.
Because I could also see that they would see it like, oh, apparently God really made me feel like they should do this. So this is the God thing. Like, was it though?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, where there's definitely those people who, like, I've heard people like, oh, somebody has a need right there, and they offer up their car,
right,
and such right there, and that's something I don't want to be kind of like bashing against those people who hear that and make those sort of decisions, because those are definitely moments of blessings and such for it right there. And so church might have thought it was a blessing, but I kind of agree with you. Like, the whole part of that is like
suspicious.
Because we like, if someone put their wedding ring in, that wedding ring in there, wouldn't you be like, okay, what's going on right here?
Yeah. I mean, especially if you see it's a class ring and stuff like that, it's like, okay, it makes complete sense why they did that. Maybe you should have asked them, are you sure? Mm-hmm. So, especially you're younger, not thinking clearly. So,
I mean, probably at that time they could see the year on the ring. Like, this is somebody who's close and stuff.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would be, I'd say, awkward. Some person might think of like, oh, I've had this class ring for 50 years or 20 years, and be like, okay, like, maybe it's worth something to some person, but because the church is probably pawning that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know what else you would do. That's what I would assume. I don't know what else you would do with it.
Yeah.
So, but it's something you could do, and I could see them seeing that. Oh, okay, God compelled someone to do this. So this is, I was like, maybe you should have asked first, just for a conscience sake.
Because that ring's probably smelted right.
Yeah.
Right now. Like, can he go back to his high school or college to see about getting the ring? I'm pretty sure there could be some
I'm sure that he probably could have gone back to him and say, hey, I did this. Could I get it back? I just wasn't think straight, but I'm pretty sure he just didn't think about it. It's just he just felt bad afterwards what he had done. But yeah. Mm-hmm. So that would fall into that, I think.
The part of making sure the decision for in Christ is set and sober-minded, mm-hmm. or your actions after after believing is in that, so you're not manipulated. Because I can also see if those emotions of fear and such, you'd be like, hey, this is not doing so well for me. I'm just going to book out of my faith right here. Mm. And for them to be like, hey, look back, back at your life and see, hey, the scripture says there's going to be hard times. There is going to be persecution and such right there. So you can take a full look at your faith without just being very loose about your faith, mm-hmm. and just booking off the first time with troubles.
Right, yeah. Yeah, that could be a tricky one to help someone navigate through.
Yeah. I
guess at that point you also, because you can feel, at that point it's not just that it's hard, it's almost like you can feel betrayed. And so, because that's really the emotion you're dealing with, is you feel betrayed by the whole thing if you're going through those difficult times. And so that's where you need someone to hopefully come and, mm-hmm. give clarity and help you to see it from the right angle.
Okay.
And then also just prayer, because that doesn't even mean that would help them. To try and help them to reason through it, that's not necessarily going to help everyone. Some people are just kind of stuck in the bad state.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And there are people who, in the emotional distress right there, would be logic doesn't work. And I can totally understand from a person in distress that you want comfort, you want like sincerity for it in that moment. Mm-hmm. Logic and reasoning like don't matter as much right there. And for it, I would say that's a weakness times of reasoning and logic. There's in those emotional distress moments, you should see what their fear is, what's hurting them,
right?
Because that is where the pain is coming from. See if is there a way to relieve the pain? Is there a way to conquer that fear, and so that you can go to logic and reasoning afterwards? Mm-hmm. Because the logic and reasoning, they have to think of it themselves in the moment. And so if they can look back at that moment and then see like it was relieved, it was taken care of in the moment right there, and you can discuss it afterwards. Mm-hmm. The key part is talking about it afterwards, because otherwise you're not like fully helping them in the moment of distress, because that thing could come back again, and they have no basis to think of, oh, this is how it is, even if it doesn't work out the same way. I can trust that God has a way for it.
Yeah. I also wonder if it's possible to, when they are in that emotional state, if you could help them to, not through reason, but like if you could help to, with how you were responding to them emotionally, if you can shift their emotion, so that way that you can essentially calm them down. Like, okay, you're in this state, let's bring you over here. Yeah. And then hopefully in doing that, we can start to, and you being that for a little bit, we can start to talk sense to the situation. Because there's no way that you're going to see sense if you're in a what do you call it? A
distress?
Yeah, when you're in a distressed moment, there's no way you're in this. It's very unlikely you'll see reason with that. And so if they can help to shift your emotion to a more calm one by being that way with you, for kind of going where you're at and then moving you over. Because, I mean, there is, in a sense, emotional manipulation there, but I would see it as more of a healthy thing, because you're not just going to, like, try and move them. You're also going to be like, okay, now let's figure out why did that happen type of thing. Let's not, so, okay, we're done with that. Let's just move on. Now, figure out what's going on there. So, but at least if they're calm, they can hopefully give you a better idea, okay, here's why this was happening. So
yeah, that goes more into the sober mind right there, trying to calm it out, make them calm right there.
Right. So that's an actionable thing. So that's an actionable thing.
Yeah, that's an actual thing right there. Because, yeah, from my own experience in it, I've had like periods of depression right there, and sometimes you just have to ride the wave of depression right there.
Right.
And reach out. That's definitely a big thing, is reaching out to get you out of that mindset, because for me, for depression is you have like one thought that like comes in for depression, and you're like, I can combat that with reason, logic right there, and hope in Christ. But then another one comes up, and you're like, okay, I can deal with that with reason, logic, and Christ. Then a third one comes up, and then the other two pile up right there. And now you're trying to battle 3 different thoughts.
Right.
Or more right there, and just loops into itself right there. You can't fully like reason with one when you're like, I'm trying to go with this third option right here, but then number 1 comes up, and so the third thought has not defeated right there, or I've not removed it completely, and it's still just waiting right there in the back of my mind. And for it, the part where you have the person go there, they can like put you into a place that's not going into that loop right there. They can, for right there, and that's the first part, like you said, like getting them into a place that's calm, like getting them out.
Right
there is good for right there. But a big thing is definitely having friends.
Yeah, don't be alone.
Don't be alone. That's where most of depression and those, like, I would say, that way of distressed mind right there for in depression will lead to.
Right. I don't think for me it's usually like things piling on each other. It for me usually it's one thought that it depends on if there's something that has happened that just makes it an intense thing, and that's what will get me with the depression or whatever. It's just one thought with a certain event that has happened that it's a thought that can come at different times, but there has to be some sort of event that triggers it that just makes it where just like it sticks, it won't go away. So reason at that point is just like I can reason my way into it.
It's like I'm seeing this out here, and this is going on my thoughts right here. This is not good because practically it feels like a validation of that thought.
Right. Yeah.
There you need something else to come along and kind of beat out that thought right there, or definitely have you not see the connecting parts right there, maybe.
Right.
I could be completely thinking of this wrong. It goes right there, because for it, people deal with depression in different ways.
Yeah.
There. But I can also, on the flip side of thinking of like where everything's good, like we've talked a lot about like in the valley, but what about like on the mountaintop right there where it seems like you're getting a lot of blessings and such? To be like, hey, like this is, you have this high that's possibly not grounded like in the fact that God's given you a blessing, but more of you're in your highs on the blessing itself right there. To be like, oh, I have this wealth and such, or have this health, and I've just gotten this award, and the blessing is like you're not thinking about Christ right there, but you're thinking about yourself, but you're giving, you say you're giving glory to Christ, but you're more of on your own personal high.
Yeah, I could see that. I could also see it being a type of thing of like you're on a high with these things are going well, and you are experiencing a bunch of blessings, and then out of the blue, something that tends to knock you out will also come and hit you. And it's one of those things like, I'm not done with this yet. Don't deal with this yet. It's like it had to come now, and I could see that like tipping you off to being, because it's like it's the same old thing, and it's like I was doing just fine. You showed up.
Yeah, that's I can see where that just living on that high and the hard stuff coming up right there is you were not in a like your mind was more of the blessing is your security right there, and that thing coming up is the part to possibly knock you back down into the sober mind.
Right. I can also just see it as even if you are possibly in the right state of mind with it, it's not like you're just necessarily just like staying on the blessing and not in Christ. But at the same time, if this other thing that tends to be an issue for you also pops up, that could be more of like a satanic type of thing where it's the devil using that to distract you. Like that's usually your issue. So he knows how to get you off that focus of Christ. So he'll put that in there. Then also you're distracted like this again, and then it throws you all off.
Well, I can see that happening for people, like definitely in ministry. I'm thinking of like sports players and rich people who are like, oh, like the blessings I've had, like the Lord has given this to me and stuff. It's right there, and they will suddenly, when the hardship happens, their decisions will be like a part where you're questioning what they're doing to be like, I just have to save myself.
Oh, yeah.
Right there. Or they get angry when people question them in like for sports, for accomplishment, where they should be like going with that accomplishment to be like, the Lord gave it to me. If he wants to take it away, should be okay with it. But getting angry, I think, is like not the proper response.
Right
there, where you're clinging more to the high.
Yeah, although I could also see that being like it does bring out an attitude in you that needs to be dealt with. And that can also be a type of thing where, yeah, it's a negative thing, but also that's an area where God is exposing something, or wherever has been exposed, he uses that to sanctify. So, you're seeing that this being a case like, oh, okay, this actually needs to be worked on. I'm not done with this yet. This is something that God needs to, just sanctify and make it to where I am basically living or relying more on him and stuff like that.
And I could be.
So that's the positive aspect out of
it. I'm thinking more of that, like, it could be definitely more of the trial aspect, and I'm just trying to like expand more of the sober-mindedness, and I could be expanding it way too far. There was more of like God's going, I will deal with those who have pride or these things that they're struggling with, and my thought is their mind's not in the right place, and God's like, could be, but also could be just something I'm working on right there, not part of test of their sober-mindedness.
Right.
Actually, are you seeing anything else, or should we move on to different topics?
I was curious as to what you were wanting to talk about with that guy James Comey. And I was like, what is that? Okay. What are you curious about?
Well, I guess that was going to be the transition right there. So one of the things I was wanting to go kind of with it. So it's the conversation of James Comey. I can put this away.
Okay. I thought this was a part of it, but okay.
It was more of like trying to get your thoughts about it and such right there.
That's why you said second topic. Okay. I was like, I thought that you're wanting to connect that to the first Peter thing, but that'll be the second topic. It's like, those aren't together? Okay. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, because as I was thinking, what happened with like the case right there was like the idea of possibly like trying to find judgment, but messing up how you try to get information to bring like judgment on right there, and how possibly like people, Christians, will also possibly be like, hey, starting from a position of we have to carry out judgment and doing the steps backwards right there. Because for me, the question, part of it was, I was hearing about like part of the James Comey case was that in the indictment, as they were going through, there was a possibility that the prosecution was bringing the case up in a way of he's guilty and we'll find the guilty stuff afterwards. So,
yeah.
Right there.
Yeah,
and so with that was just looking back in our legal system of going to a grand jury is the possibility that there is a crime that's committed, and these are the steps that we think he's committed a crime, where the presenting to the grand jury was like, we believe he's committed a crime, we don't have this other stuff that we think is a possibility of him committing these crimes right here. And then if we are able to look more into it, we'll be able to find the information or the evidence for this crime right here. And kind of the thoughts of, does that, starting off trying to find your case that way, kind of puts it off that you shouldn't like charge somebody on this sort of crime right there.
But that does actually fit into an aspect of this where it talks about the importance of judging impartially. He's not being impartial. That would be the issue I see, is that it's very questionable. If you're just looking for something, then that would very much so suggest or imply strongly that you are not being impartial about trying to find information and stuff like that. It's like it's one thing if it's already there, you see it, and so you're going to present it, and so you just like it's just known that this is a bad thing. But if you already assume that someone's doing something bad, now you just gotta find it to prove it. It's just like, well, maybe you can find it, but maybe you shouldn't be the one trying to look for it because you don't seem like you're just trying to. It's too easy for you to just try to make something up, or it's just it'd be too. You would have a conflict of interest if you're just trying to find if you just believe because of the way the person is that it's gonna be that you're gonna find something bad. So let's find it. You have a conflict of interest just in your own emotions on the situation. So I would see that it's not a problem for them to look into something if they think it, but they shouldn't be the ones looking into it. It would have to be someone else. That they need someone who's actually impartial, and then you have to have a good reason for, okay, here's why we think that this would be the case, and then they judge based off of that. Okay, that's your personal opinion. There's not enough to go on that just for saying that there would clearly be something wrong. So I mean, overall, I would just say that could they look into something? Sure. Should he be involved in it? No, because he's already showed himself to want to find something. So you're presuming guilt. You're not supposed to presume guilt.
Yeah.
So he wouldn't be the right person to do it.
So I think probably messed up a little bit of conversation right there was with the Comey case, is that Comey's being charged with the crime, and the prosecution is the one brought up into the case into like the grand jury of the part that we will find something to have him guilty.
Oh, he's clearly. I'd say it still stands. That that if that's what they're doing, that they should at the very least find someone impartial, not be the ones to look for something, because you obviously don't have the good judgment to figure out what he did wrong.
Yeah,
if that's the case.
But part of it question is also, should you like try to charge that back on it again if you've already had that case brought to somebody, you've brought it to a judge to be like, hey, I think, or to somebody like, I think they've done this. This is how we went with the case. And somebody says, hey, I don't like this. The way you went about to bring this case is wrong right here. Should they be able to bring that case up again if you've messed up how you've done it?
If that's the case, then I would think that it would make sense that they wouldn't go after you. You have to, if you're going to bring up something a second time, you need to do it in a careful way. So, because I know that there's like certain things where double jeopardy with certain things, from my understanding, where you can't try the same thing twice. I think that's like specific.
Yeah, it's a specific of like into the trial of like after a guilty or not guilty.
Mm-hmm, yeah. Right
there, but this is before even going with the guilty or not guilty part right there. Sentence. This is the part of trying to bring a case up to somebody.
A second time?
What?
A second time?
Yeah, second time and such for it if you've messed up the first time to be, because...
Is it the same people bringing it?
It's possibly the same people in the same court. If it's the same sort of people, the same office bringing it up, that's the part where I'm like, I don't think the same office should bring it up. It should be completely different people bringing it up, because if you're able to do that, you can in turn practically have somebody always in a legal battle for the same thing over and over again.
Right.
If every time, or if you've done it where you messed up, like how they should proceed in bringing this case up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I would think that if you were to do that, then it shouldn't be the people who initially did it, because at this point, if you messed up in how you did it initially and now you're trying to do it again, it seems a bit more like you have more of an emotional involvement with it now. It's like, I want this to be done. I was like, okay, maybe you find someone else to do it.
Yeah. Because I'm like, this is, by doing that, you have that emotional investment. Mm. You have a possibility of bringing false evidence in there, or manipulating evidence in a way that it should not be. Yeah. Because you have already started off with the wrong conclusion of he's guilty instead of he might be guilty. What does the evidence say?
Right, yeah.
Right there.
I mean, I would say that'd be one of the big issues, that you're already presuming guilt. And that's not usually what you're supposed to do. It's supposed to be that, this thing from my understanding, is that it should already be known that they did something wrong. Not that you assume that they must have done something wrong. It's that you actually know of a specific thing that they did wrong, and now let's look into, now you dig into that specific thing that you already know that was an issue. Or you at least think it was an issue because you have the understanding that it was a crime. But if you don't, you're just saying, this has to be wrong. I was like, okay, well, maybe just back away.
And that's the part where the grand juries come up, where it's people, you bring that to them to be like, we think there's crime has been committed, and you let that grand jury decide if that's if a crime has been committed, that it will go to into a trial.
Now, I mean, at that time, as long as, I mean, you can, like, the person who's emotionally invested can bring it up, I would think, but they can't be the ones to do the investigation. It'd be more of, okay, here's the stuff that we've come across. We think that they're guilty. You figure out if it's right. We can't be the ones to dig into this because we have a conflict of interest.
I mean, yeah, that would be a good way of probably investigating again right there, if they to do it again, to bring somebody else who doesn't have that tie to the first.
Now, there is one way I could see it being not as clear cut, and that's if you thought you had before you did it, you thought you had some evidence that they were doing some sort of crime, and you thought it was good enough to bring, and then the judge disagreed. And then at that point, okay, it's not so much so that you may not necessarily be emotionally invested. It's just, okay, you turned out that the stuff you thought was that was enough to prove it, the judge disagreed with, and so now you would have, and so at that point you probably want to bring it up to one, see if you can't find more information at that point, because it doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just means that this judge disagreed with you, and so at that point I could see you bring up to a second judge or to a different judge, and if they come to the same conclusion, even if you come across more stuff, then at that point it's like, okay, if someone is to bring this up again, it can't be you.
So. I'll go with that. To be like, hey, in the part right there where to a different judge and such right there is probably fair right there. But I think the part where you're going to the grand jury to see about an indictment, to be like, hey, yeah, but is the part where the grand jury does not know all the information that a judge would know. And so bringing that there to them was in that manner was where the judge was saying you practically lied to the jury,
right?
Like this grand jury to convince them that to get into a state that they're already guilty to bring the crime.
Now, isn't it a thing where you can have the grand jury there, but the judge has to be there, and if you bring up, I forget which person it is, but they bring up, let's try and persuade the grand jury that this person is guilty, and
probably should clarify because we're between like a grand jury and a trial jury is probably where I think probably a bit of a confusion right there.
Okay.
Where a trial jury is where most of the time you see in the courtrooms and shows and such, that is like a trial jury. A grand jury is where a group of people are presented with this. We believe this person has committed a crime. Are we allowed to investigate? So this is
the jury themselves will investigate it?
No, the grand jury doesn't investigate, but they bring it to a grand jury to be like, here's some simple evidence. Here's some evidence. This is not the evidence needed beyond a reasonable doubt. This is evidence of, I forget the legal term, but probable cause.
Okay.
So which is you need less evidence for it, but you can believe to be like, hey, so this guy was walking down the street over here during when this crime happened over it. Are we allowed to investigate this person?
Right. So the grand jury is the one who makes the call on that?
Will make the call to the call would be like, do we like investigate this person as possible, like a suspect and such right there. The
grand jury is the one who's asking to do the further investigation, or
the person who's like the police officer would be like, hey, this is what we think this is enough evidence for him to, he's in this area at this time.
And so they're asking the grand jury if they can do that.
If they can investigate farther.
Right. And so the grand jury is in a similar sense as jury, it's a bunch of random people.
Random people.
And they're asking the random people if they can proceed further.
So the grand jury's in a grand jury, they get brought in for like a month. They can't do it like anything. They get brought multiple cases in front of them.
I think still go back to what I was initially saying, is that I would imagine that a judge is still in there to so that way they can find out whether or not, if they aren't so familiar with the law, with the stuff, they would hear from a judge on, okay, they say this, but this isn't actually, let me clarify how this law works.
So for it, the judge is not in there at the moment. That's how grand juries work, because the judges, I think, for that evidence right there, the judge is not supposed to be what's permissible, what's not, because in a trial, once the trial gets started, there can be evidence that's withheld and such from both sides. Well, there's more things are allowed to be evidence. Or we're in a grand jury, hearsay can be used as evidence, where hearsay cannot be used as evidence in a trial once the trial is going on right there.
Right.
So if be like, hey, I did this interview right over here, this can be used as evidence for a grand jury. But if you have a trial jury, that interview, if that was to be brought as evidence, has to be brought and responded to in that evidence. In a grand jury, the person who's also being possibly charged, does not have to be there.
Okay. So this person is bringing this information to a grand jury to try and see if they can do a second round.
Yeah, practically do a second round where there's more evidence being brought up.
And so if they don't know the law, then there's no because I assume that part of the thing is it's questionable if they can even do that.
And that's where the lawyer that's in there bringing that to them has to make sure they know the law right there.
Oh, yeah, and they're trusting that the lawyer is going to be honest.
Trusting the lawyer is going to be honest right there.
Because that's the whole point of the judge. Generally, is that, okay, here's what the lawyer says, but let me clarify how this actually the little bit that I have, like whenever I've gone to jury duty and whatnot, and they've just I've experienced where they have the judge will clarify some things, like in case you don't fully understand, here's an aspect that you need to know of how the law works here. I would see that if you're trusting the lawyer who's working on the case to tell you here's how this works, I'd be suspicious. I'd be like, is it really work that way? I mean, you could probably get in trouble if you're not being honest, but at the same time, I would be suspicious of that.
Yeah, but for it's supposed, that's where they have like supposedly transcripts and such of the interaction. You're supposed to have like a recording.
Right. Okay.
And that's where the part where the judge is supposed to go with, hey, you did something wrong here, and all.
Interesting.
And you misquoted sort of the law and such right there. But also kind of was like with the case where they could be like, oh, you stepped a little bit over bounds, or you stepped a lot of over bounds right there. And so that's like where he's like, "Oh, you started with that position right there. Like this is."
That sounds inefficient.
Can be right there. But also with the case, why he also questioned it was because there seems to be like 2 or 4 hours missing from that period right there. So he's worried more of like they had that wrong position right there, because from what the jury's transcript is, like they got information that was not discussed.
Oh yeah, I gotcha.
So it's like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Which is like that part where possibly led the jury.
Yeah. I imagine that even if you were to remove that because it wasn't actually discussed, you would still be concerned with, will this sway them because they already saw it?
Yeah.
I would think.
Or you would have to get a new grand jury.
Yeah.
Right there, because it's been tainted and such. And
yeah.
That's the part where going through transcripts.
I suppose that would be the more of, because, you know, if you have a judge in there for just like, I guess, a regular jury duty and informing you of, okay, let me give you clarity. If you don't have that, and you're telling this to a grand jury, and then the judge sees that you did something wrong, then you have to regroup. That's enough to keep you to hesitate. It's like, do I really want to go through this again?
Yeah.
So.
But for it also, I think, helps with the judge's time probably with it right there, to be like, oh, I have set times for these sort of trials and such.
Right.
And all right there that they can just look over it, not have to go over everything so quickly. They can go over it more quickly and just read over it, and allows, in a sense, the person to just go on without as many interruptions and just answer a jury's questions.
So with this, and with James Comey thing, the issue with that was that the lawyer tried to bring up the same case to a grand jury and to reopen it.
So the question, right now is like she did missteps in the grand jury. She misled them. She also possibly forged parts of the documents.
Okay.
They're with it right there, but the main part I was going for is like kind of, if you messed up all these different things right here,
and they're trying to do it again.
Do it again.
Can you be trusted?
Can you be trusted for it, or it's like
at that point, I would say, because it's not one of those things of you like trusting that they learned their lessons. Like, if we did it, you wouldn't be the one to bring this case to us. You have emotional issues with this case. So yeah, I would say that it wouldn't be appropriate for them to be the ones to bring the case.
Yeah, and with all the other like sort of missteps right there, should this actually be allowed to be as a case, or like you could say like the double jeopardy before, because how much the judge says like they messed up. For one thing would be like, okay, like possibly like misleading the jury and such right there, but like missing several hours of the grand jury and forging some documents in there for the indictment is like, how many of these big missteps do you allow before it's like this case should not be brought up at all, of how much you've messed up.
Yeah, I guess part of what I could see is you can bring the case up again, but you have to use, one, it has to be someone else, and two, you cannot use the same. You have to find other things now. Now you need new evidence. Because if you've already messed with this specific stuff, there's no telling what's tainted and what's not. So you need complete new evidence for what you have suspected as wrongdoing. and you can't, and that same person can't be the one to mess with it because they've already proven that they're not trustworthy with it with the case.
Yeah, I can see probably a part where you have to be like, this part has to be excluded from any, to like the next lawyer that
Right.
goes up on the case. Be like, you cannot use this evidence right here because before it has been tainted right there. The previous person who brought falsified documents for the indictment.
Right. Because I could almost, I mean, assuming that's how it works, I could almost see them being like trying to see if they couldn't figure out what was true and what wasn't in it. But like, no, we don't need that headache. It's just forget this evidence.
Yeah. Because my thought is you've lost the case already if you had to say, let the jury, you have missing time of what the indictment is, and on the indictment you like forge signatures for it and change what the indictment says.
Yeah, so I guess the way, because that makes sense, that if you hadn't messed with that many things, that would suggest that there's just nothing there. So I guess that what it would have to be is that someone else would have to bring it to you who has no connection to that person, that situation at all, and then find even twice as strong of evidence for this stuff. It's like, okay, we have some seriously good reason to believe this happened because of this other stuff, because of this stuff we found. But as long as they also can't have any connection to, like, you know, that person or have any connection to that other person, because then it seems like, okay, you're trying to redo it, and not so much so someone actually just a lawyer ends up coming across some other information that's like, oh, this is actually pretty bad. Yeah. So, but it has to be twice as strong because that thing was already botched as bad.
Then the question also goes to that lawyer right there, because you have done this before. This part just a massive scale that practically, I say, questions all the other cases you're working on.
Oh, I mean, almost if you're going to mess with that much stuff, it sounds like you are in serious danger of losing your license. Yeah, because there's no reason. It's not at all appropriate to mess with that, but to mess around with that much stuff. It shows that you're not trustworthy. You have to be trustworthy to do your job.
Yeah, I agree with that. That it's like, because lawyers can make mistakes. We're humans.
Yeah.
The question is like, how many mistakes are you making? And some of them are just like, those mistakes seem so intentional. Right there. That you have to question all their other stuff that they've done, because I can see like, possibly misleading the jury and such. That can be something of more of a slap on the wrist right there, to be like, that's the only thing. That's one part I can see like being an issue. We can possibly still go, but this is still like, this is like a red flag that's waving along as the case proceeds right here. Right. But by the time you've done so many things, it's like, hey, you should probably raise up that white flag of surrender.
Yeah.
Right there. And so that was my sort of thought of with that, and then how we could possibly put it into our own personal lives of do we judge people with that mindset first of the idea of they're already guilty?
Sometimes. It probably in general it probably depends on what connection you have to them. Meaning, like, do you know them through someone else, or have you heard stuff about the person? So yeah, can you almost be impartial to whatever you've heard about a person and just judge for yourself, or have you heard enough from other people about this person that you just can't help but make a prejudgment and be like, okay, let's see if they actually are going to behave this way.
Wow.
I can see people having an unfair judgment towards somebody pretty easily. It just depends on how you are familiar with the person, through other people or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Or it could just be the way they look, and and you're like, I've seen this before.
No. And I think at times for that we can have a bad connotation of people that way of hearing about them and such right there, that we're automatically going to have that assumption of them for it, and not actually taking it probably more as like a warning, more as taking it as that person is themselves, and where you can probably like meet with the person, talk with them, and see kind of from their story, but also like you can have that warning, but don't make that judgment yet. You can have the warning, but still proceed without the judgment.
Yeah, I think it would also depend on who you heard the information from. Did you hear the stuff from someone you generally know has good judgment on stuff, and so you can trust that? I mean, it's not that it would cause you to just like completely disregard the person, but you have good reason to think it could be true. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, you'll hear them out, but you will hear them out with hesitation because you do trust the person who told you. But if you hear about from someone who you're almost indifferent to, it's like someone, oh yeah, they're someone fun to hang out with, but besides that, I don't really think a whole lot of what they have to say. Then there'd be no reason to trust, to take what they say as anything more than a grain of salt. But if it's someone that you actually have learned to trust their judgment, trust them as a person, and then they say stuff that would be questionable about the other person, then I could see how you would take that more seriously and still, find out for yourself with the person, but you have reason to believe that it could be true because you know the person who told you, and they've proven themselves to be trustworthy. And
proven themselves to be trustworthy, and that's definitely the part of like eyewitness accounts of your friend, and that would be part of the thing where you've asked your friend is like, is this your experience with this person, or is this what you've heard from other people and such? And your trustworthy friend would be able to tell you of, this is what I've experienced with them compared to what I've experienced to what other people have experienced right there. And that's where you get your trustworthy friend will be able to tell you between possibly what's gossip and what's eyewitness.
Right. I mean, to me, also part of the trustworthy would be you wouldn't even have to try and clarify it. They could just be like, well, okay, here's what I've heard, but I don't know what to think of it one way or another. They've proven that they're not going to just gossip. They're going to be accurate, so you get an appropriate knowledge of the person. Like, here's where I got this information from, but they can also be like, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything. So you can trust that the way they would go about informing you shows that you can trust their judgment on the situation. So, and if they just are flat out like, no, that's the bad person, you're like, okay, I know what you're like. I know how you are, that you're trustworthy to know that kind of stuff, or to make those judgments that, okay, I can take this information seriously and be cautious about the situation.
Yeah. And I believe that's probably a better response to be is like, okay, I'll be cautious about it instead of like I'm going to avoid or demonize this person before I meet up with them or talk with them. And I think that is a better response to have than if you have that conversation with a friend to start off with demonizing them right there. It's better to, I'd say, listen to them, talk to them, because it might just be the chance that you are going to be the witness to them there. And so it's better to have that part of a warning than to demonize or ostracize them by pushing them out.
Yeah, I mean, the most I would see you doing if you're from people you know and trust are saying nothing but bad things about the person, like they're aware of them just being like very sketchy and shady about different stuff, then the way I would see is that you would approach them with caution. But yeah, basically any interaction you're having with them, you're just like it's reason enough to believe that, okay, I need to make sure this person's not going to do something that's going to be problematic for myself. Mm-hmm. So you have reason enough to believe that's the case. Doesn't mean you, like you say, doesn't mean you shun them, but you are going to be very cautious and aware of whatever that person is doing. That's if you hear from people that you know you can trust that they're good at making those judgment calls, or they've had personal experience, and you can trust that what they're saying is true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good right there. But I'd also say just be cautious to make sure with that information that you don't gossip as well from that information, to be like, okay, I say my friend is friend A and the person that they're talking about is friend B, that I don't go to friend C, talk about friend B in a way that I have the same level between person A with person C as if I know person B the same way.
I mean, right. I mean, so are you saying like if the third person is trying to get an idea from you what that person's like?
Yeah, say
it's not just like they're just trying to like gossip for the sake of gossip, but they're actually trying to figure a situation out.
Yeah, to make sure that even though your source is trusted, that the person that you're also giving this information to, the person C, about person B, is that they take it with a grain of salt, but they should also go to possibly, if they know person A, to go to person A to talk about it, but also that the information that you have about person B is from another source right there, and not your own experience if you have not interacted with person B yet.
At that point, I would say you just be straightforward with them. It's like, I personally haven't experienced it myself, but here is what I'm aware of from these different people that I've learned to trust their judgment. And you proceed with caution from that. Do what you want to do, but from these people, this is what I've heard about this person. Mm-hmm. That's obviously only if that person who's asking is fixing to have an interaction, they're trying to figure out how to best proceed, and you know from people who you can trust their judgment, then you just let them know, well, here's what I have heard. You may find it differently, but this is what I've heard from these people that I've trusted. And you can even let them know who has told you about this stuff.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it might sound kind of odd. Like, I know people. I'm not going to tell you who, but that just sounds sketchy.
Yeah, I think that's important that the person C is going to interact with person B, so that person C doesn't go around to interact with person D, like they had no intention of interacting with person B. But if they are in the process of interacting with person C, not C, but B, C is interacting with B, that would be probably more appropriate right there, instead of just being like, this is, like, C is not interacting with B at all, and you just mentioned this with C, which you got information from person A, that now goes more into gossip right there.
You're saying they're not going to have any, if the person
C is not going to interact with person B.
Oh, okay, then, yeah, so there's no reason to tell them anything, otherwise it's just gossip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Because for that is that you are, because the person for C needs to be interacting with B right there, so they can make their judgment right there and then go from there. Because otherwise, if C goes to D, C has no way of knowing kind of what B is doing. So D doesn't have the interaction that's there with B, and so all he has is C and D, which is several steps away from possibly D interacting with B, and then by the time D comes with E, there's no way that there's...
It's hearsay.
It's so far hearsay in the farthest degree. Right there. And so in that case, you're more starting gossip yourself because C had no plans to interact with B.
Right, yeah.
And so you have to be on your own self careful of preventing gossip yourself right there. Because
don't talk bad about people just for the sake of doing it because you know about it.
Yeah. Know about it right there.
It's a story to tell. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. And so and that gets into the part that person D or E is going to start off with that guilty part right there about them.
Right.
Right. And so that was my thought of definitely of kind of having those guilty thoughts, ideas about person, guilty ideas, not guilty thoughts. That's a completely different topic, but guilty ideas about that person right there really hinders interactions right there and doesn't get you on the right foot with people.
Right. And I imagine that also because if you are talking to someone that you learn to be trustworthy and asking them about someone else if you're fixed to interact with them, that they can also make a judgment. Part of what you're trusting is that they're making a judgment of they didn't have just one interaction with that person. They've had multiple, and so maybe let's say that if they've only had one interaction with that person and it was not a good experience, it would make sense that the person that you would trust would assume or make the best assumption that maybe that person was having a bad day. And I had this bad experience, but who knows what was happening. But if they consistently have a bad experience, then that's where you'd be like, okay, yeah, this is what this person seems to be like. Just proceed with caution. So it's not just like a one-off thing. It's like it's how I have consistently dealt with this person. Mm-hmm. So that's also why I tend to not deal with this person. Just I have to.
Yeah, I mean that.
To me, that's part of what would come with the whole people you trust to tell you, because they will be as make sure of as honest about it, but also make sure that there's like almost like wisdom involved in what they're telling you to, and in their interactions with the whole thing. Like they're not going to just assume the bad person was a bad person because of one interaction. They're going to have a little bit more wisdom behind it, and just like let's assume the best, unless you see otherwise consistently. And those should be the people you trust with that kind of information. You see that they will think those things through and not just assume the worst about somebody.
Yeah. You want to have the friends who interact with people and think deeply about it, and
right.
Not be like, I've had this one or two bad experiences right here and it blows up everything right there.
Mm-hmm.
They're willing to think about what's going on with the other person.
Right
there that they interact with, and can possibly have, I'd say, like empathy for them to see what they're going through. Is there right there, or if it's consistent, to be like there is a character quality about this person.
Right.
Or they're not just reacting the whole way to a terrible situation. This is part of their character.
Right. maybe to some extent it is the type of thing of like, yeah, there's problematic things going on in their life, and so there's an empathy thing there, but I still need to deal with that. So it's like I've got enough problems in my life. I don't need that to be another.
I'm more of the part of like, we should probably interact with those persons who possibly people would say have problems and such, because it's the moments where we can be a witness to them.
Yeah, I was more referring to if there's like a specific thing you're trying to figure out or trying to deal with, and it doesn't necessarily need to involve them. Okay, let me find a less stressful way of dealing with this. But if there's a way to like interact with them just for the sake of being there for them and whatnot, I can see that being a different situation.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not suggesting you just avoid them. I'm just saying for specific situations, like I don't need that headache. I've got enough of a headache with this other thing. So I could just cause more problems, because if it turns out that they are like that, and then you're also dealing with this thing, then it could make more problems with your witness if you're not prepared for that. So,
yeah, because I think you're probably thinking of, I have this task to complete,
right? And
so if this person's causing this sort of problem and such, you would say like, I better not interact with them or perceive a caution of possibly going to them when I'm trying to possibly complete this task.
Mm-hmm.
My thought process is, this person has possibly this junk or in their life, or they react this way, or they're having this issue in their life right now. I should not. My part is, this is a person I can meet and talk and interact with and like be a witness for, like for that, or as a friend possibly in their life. And I can see where we're having different ideas of that situation. That friend mentions that too, about that person be right there, that we have like, this is a different like how we're approaching that situation,
right?
What that situation is,
right? Yeah, with what you're talking about, it's more like you're going in there, but be prepared to deal with some extra problems along the way to be there for the person, or to grow that relationship, to be able to help them out. Just be prepared to deal with some extra issues along the way. Don't just assume that it's going to. Don't go in if you're just trying to deal with your own problems. But go in expecting, okay, there's probably gonna be some problems with this other person. I just need to be prepared to work within that as a way of a relationship building.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and probably for you, it's probably like, hey, like I need to complete this task. Like I'm doing. My thought is, if I'm a parent and I'm trying to do some stuff around the house, and I'm needing to get something done around the house, and I have 2 kids, one's has like issues like doing this task that I need to get around the house, I'm going to ask the other kid to do it.
mm-hmm.
That's kind of the thought I'm thinking of, that you're thinking of. Is that the right idea, or is it a bit different?
It isn't so much so that they'd be a pain in the butt for the task. It's that it has more to do with that their personality is just a problem. Like they have just too many negative things going on that of how they function in life. And so I could see that becoming a I mean, to me, it has more to do with you just have a bad attitude in general. It's not like one specific thing. It's just like in general, you have a bad attitude about things, and that and it comes out in other negative ways, either in how you are interacting with people or how you're doing a task. You're more of a negative person to deal with.
Okay, and so that's probably right there of some people probably go personality wise for that, but also like probably means like working on two people at the same time right there. Of one for hopefully that person, they're like a native and such, as somebody helping them to kind of look at that, and also I would say for myself to be like, I just have to go along with possibly this if I dealing with a person that's negative and such right there. I'd probably say it sometimes I'd probably be avoiding them. I have to admit myself that I probably avoid that, because I would definitely have like in a work environment those people who just seem to have that negative atmosphere about them.
Right.
I hope I'm not working with them, but the part where I having to work with them, I have to have a different attitude to be like, I'm still going to work with the best of my ability with this person right here.
I would say the trick would be is if their bad attitude, whatnot, would if you're trying to help someone else out and they have a negative attitude just in general, then you're going to have to deal with the repercussions of how they're going to affect the person you're trying to help.
So like that part right there, if you're both of you are working on the same thing and you have a third person that you need to interact with.
Right. Yeah. It's the type of thing where you're trying to help them out, and this person can help out as well, but they're also going to be a pain. They're also going to have some a personality that's going to cause problems for the person you're trying to help out.
So my guess is if you're going into ministry, say you have a person who you don't work well with and you think that they'll probably lash out, and you're in this ministry opportunity, and say my thought right now goes to a friend of ours, Josh. We have a person working with helping kids in less fortunate situations in their life, and you have this other person working, and that other person has a hard time with kids, or has an anger issue right there. And he starts to help with the kid right there, that problem right there, that the person with like the anger issues and such right there, hurting possibly the ministry if they lash out right there. Is that?
That's not, no. So the issue would be if they were to just tend to have a bad attitude about things in general. It's one of those things where you're not, that them being there isn't to really, they are useful, but they are going to bring a negative, they're going to be still just a difficult thing to deal with. Even though they will bring some useful skill to whatever you're dealing with, they still have a negative personality in the process, and it'll be something that would essentially, whoever you're helping out it can easily rub them the wrong way.
So somebody would be in that ministry, not happy being in that ministry, right there. They still help there, but they don't have the heart for like that ministry, but they're still doing it.
Well, okay, so you're interpreting it as a ministry. I'm not suggesting ministry. I'm just saying, like, in general, if you were trying to help a person, someone that you know out, and then you know that you're familiar with this other person who is able to help you with a task that you're trying to do for that person, but they still are known to have a bad attitude about stuff. That they can help out, but you're going to have to deal with them. You're going to have to deal with the repercussions of them possibly rubbing that other person the wrong way.
Okay, so practically, if you're having, I'm trying to get
I'm not sure.
I'm trying to get an exact image of
okay.
Have it in my head.
You generally don't ask that person for help. If you're trying to reach out to them and be a ministry to that person, that's where it could be a different situation.
Okay.
It's not that you're dealing with a ministry that you're getting them involved in. Is that they are the ministry, and so they become the person you're trying to help, along with helping a friend out. And you're going to have to deal with the repercussions of how they could rub that friend the wrong way, and you're going to have to deal with, okay, let me just deal with both of y'all because this person's not helping you out in that sense. And that's more so what I'm thinking of.
Okay. So yeah, I think I'm starting to get a bit more of what you're trying to say right there.
It's not a normal thing that people tend to do.
Yeah.
It has much more to do if you have if you're trying to minister to that specific person. So.
Okay.
It just makes it to where you're having to juggle a couple different things and having to smooth things over with the person you're initially trying to help out while ministering to this other person.
Ministering to two different people in two different ways at the same time.
Yeah.
At the same place.
Yeah. Pastors.
Yeah. So yeah, we did have different thoughts.
Yeah.
For it. Because I'm just like, my thought is like, a person will tell you like this guy's a criminal and such, and
no, it's not that. Not that far.
Mine was more of like, okay, we should proceed, even if they are criminal, try to be friends or witness, more so witness than friends, but be okay to take the warning right there, but not be in the situation that you're ostracizing them to. Right there, because that's where more of my thought is coming from.
But they're known to be a criminal, or they've had a criminal past.
You'd say probably, I would say both of like criminal past, or someone says they've been hurt by them and such right there. Okay. Where they have this baggage attached to them and all right there.
Right. Okay.
And so, for it, my thought is like, you've had people who have this baggage on them, and people just tend to avoid them and such.
I see.
Right there. Right. And that's, for me, is like not the goal.
Right. So it's not necessarily something that they do on a regular, but they are known for this. And so like just stay away from it because you don't know when it's going to show itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's the part where you want to avoid gossip and such.
Right.
Right there about that person, because let's say they come to the church, you don't want to have that attitude of ostracizing for them. You want to be welcoming them into the church.
Yeah, I get. There's a somewhat similar situation that I can think of where there's a guy I knew. Who I used to work with, and he had a criminal background. He and I, we were fine friends basically while he was working there and whatnot. But one of the things that he was mentioning to me was that even though he was, he had served his time and stuff like that, and he was trying to do better, that there was this one person that he knew who would always bring up that he had been in jail. And it's like anytime that they would meet, like he was a friend from my understanding in some fashion, but he always, I guess the guy I knew always was prepared for this guy to bring up that. And he said, "Remember where you've been," and stuff like that. And so it was type of thing where it was a negative thing because it was almost like he was trying to let him know you can't escape it. Mm-hmm. And now me, I had. Whenever he mentioned that a little bit later, because I would joke about him having been there, been in jail and stuff like that, just for just different random times. That I did actually after he had mentioned that a little bit later, I said, "Okay, has me joking about this been a problem for you?" He was like, "No, you don't do it like you." He's like every time I saw him, he brought it up. You just bring it up as joking at different times. It's not the same thing. But the fact that this guy brought it up to him, like every time he saw him. It was, for him, he got the sense it was this guy trying to, in a sense, put him in his place or help him to almost like remember, like, you can't escape it. and so which was a frustration for him and stuff like that. So
like an elevation of himself right there. To make himself better right there. And I can
just almost like remember who you are type of thing. And so and for a guy who was trying to get away from that, having this guy do that every time he saw him was a frustration in that sense.
And I would probably say that this is definitely not a good friend right there.
He might have been like a family friend. I don't exactly recall how he knew him. I just knew that he was a buddy who would bring that up.
Yeah,
but
I mean, for it to a point where it's like, oh, like you can be friends where you can laugh about it. That's a different thing. But also for it to bring it up to try to help them move on from it is another one to kind of. I would say is probably okay to do it, but to bring it up to mock them is, in a way that degrades them is not a good thing. And like I would fear that person would bring it up to possibly be like, don't interact with him and such this way. But I would, from what you have like bringing up, would be like, hey, like he's had this background before. If it's this situation, this would be the part of caution right there, to be like, I have no idea what like your friend was in, to be like, oh, this friend did his time for money laundering and such, and be like, okay, like if I ever interact with this friend, it would be like, if there's anything of like money or trusting with money in my account, that would be something that would take a huge that would be more like that we could take it a warning about right there. But still interact with that person in every other situation, and if that comes up, that is a conversation between me and that friend of yours.
Right.
If that happens right there,
right.
And I think would be better to be like, if that be my response, but my response would be like, if you're telling me that about that, to be like, oh, this person over here possibly did this possibly money laundering crime, to be like, I'm going to have nothing to do with this guy. Like I'm out right here. I'm going to tell everybody about this and that they should stay away. That is absolutely the wrong reaction I should have.
Right.
And I should not be telling other people about that because I've not interacted with this person.
Right. Now, I don't know, but I got the impression that the guy that he knew, I'm not so sure he would go around telling other people about that. It was just more so he was always reminding him of where he had been. Yeah.
I was playing a scenario if that person started to do that.
Right, yeah.
For right there.
I think he probably would have had bigger issues with him if that were to have happened. Yeah. He would have avoided him a lot more if he were to find out that guy was doing that. So I think he would have had probably an appropriate reaction to it. Yeah. Like, you're not causing anything but problems for me. I'm just going to stay away. I already got enough problems on my own.
And I'd probably say for people, if you have those sort of people in your life telling you that, you should also be talking to your friend about, like, why are you saying these sort of things in this way right there? Because I believe that person will continue to gossip. And as Christians, we're not supposed to gossip right there.
Right.
And that's a part where hopefully you can work at cutting the gossip in a way off from spreading in a certain direction right there. That it does it, that possibly that branch of the gossip is not going to sprout another one from that path. That's the end of the line for that branch.
Right.
I can't say about all the other branches that have sprouted out as that one's growing out, but that branch has stopped growing right there.
Right.
So that's my analogy of
Yeah.
gossip. There's a branch growing there, because I know like other ones is like gossip.
Someone watch VeggieTales.
What?
Someone watch VeggieTales.
Yeah,
very close to that.
Very close to that. Where like gospel's running halfway across the world of truth is putting their shoes on.
Yeah.
That's my sort of thought of it. So it's gonna be hard to end gossip, but it's better.
Right.
It's better to do it.
Right.
Well, I guess. Do you have any other topics, or?
I mean, if I do, it'd probably be better to. It's been 2 hours. Probably better to. Don't need to exhaust ourselves.
Be merciful to my editing this. So, with that, so for people watching or listening, we'll probably be ending it here. We'll probably go on to 1 Peter chapter 2 next time. And if you want us to go for a discussion part, leave it in the comments section for us to go over, if the place has a comment section. We'll try to possibly go over it. We don't have all the time in the world, but we will try, or we will try to respond. So, for y'all, my name is Albert Doe.
Ben Gresham.
And like and subscribe if that's an option.
His confidence.